to me when I was on the show, and we had such good times together. I was probably 18, and Malcolm was probably 17, 16, I don't know. And we would take walks together, all of us, and pick up food, talk, played basketball, hung out on the weekends, went to parties together. He was so...
Malcolm-Jamal Warner's sudden death has rocked not just Hollywood, but the soul of the black community. At just 54, the man we all grew up loving as Theo Huxtable is now mysteriously gone. Costa Rican officials are calling it an accidental drowning, clean and simple, but nobody's buying it. That bland explanation isn't stopping the rising tide of suspicion. Echoing from barbershops to YouTube comments to backdoor studio conversations, because Warner's death doesn't feel random. It feels like a trigger, peeling back the polished surface of an industry that punishes anyone who steps out of line. Here's what we've been told at least. The official version.
NBC News has just confirmed that actor Malcolm-Jamal Warner has at the age of 54. Authorities in Costa Rica telling NBC News that Warner accidentally drowned while swimming in the ocean on Sunday. Warner is best known for...
was on a family vacation in Costa Rica when he went into the water at Playa Grande and got swept away by a riptide. Bystanders managed to drag him back to shore. The Red Cross reportedly worked on him for more than 20 minutes, but it was already too late. Then comes the strange part. A second man, just 29, from Nicaragua, no known link to Warner. He was also in the water, allegedly trying to help. He survived, but here's the kicker: discharged, stable, and completely erased. No name, no photos, not a single shaky quote from a family member or neighbor. It's like he vanished into thin air. The mystery surrounding this so-called Good Samaritan has only fueled suspicion. Who is this guy? Why was he there? Was he just a passerby, or something more strategic? Some internet investigators are already calling it the Playa Grande plant. They've uncovered anonymous reports claiming Warner had been under surveillance during his trip, and while Playa Grande might look like a tropical retreat, it's remote enough to fly under the radar. So was this really a vacation or a farewell? Before revealing something dangerous, now here's where things take a darker turn. According to 3 music industry insiders, 2 of whom worked directly with Warner, in 2024, he had just recorded a tell-all podcast episode that still hasn't aired. The show, Not All Hood, was known for tackling uncomfortable truths, but this episode, it reportedly blew the lid off everything: racism in casting rooms, executive blackballing, and the cost of refusing to play the stereotype. Warner was done being quiet. One source said he planned to name names Hollywood execs who tried to erase him after he declined degrading roles in the early 2000s, and it gets worse. Another insider revealed Warner had even brought in legal backup after a major platform demanded edits to his explosive episode. He refused. Just days before his death, a separate podcast episode quietly dropped. Fans now say it sounds like a goodbye, an eerie sign he may have known something was coming, and now he's gone. The master recordings are missing. The podcast's Instagram radio silent since July 17th, 3 days before the drowning. No rips, no condolences, just ... nothing, like someone yanked the plug before the world could hear what he had to say. Of course, some want to believe it's just a coincidence, a tragic accident. That's easier than staring into the ugly truth, but not everyone can afford that comfort, especially when you look at the pattern. Speak out, and they make you disappear quietly, cleanly. Ask Monique, ask Isaiah Washington. Anyone who's dared to challenge the Hollywood machine's smiling facade. There's a rule: if you play nice, they protect you. But if you break ranks, you're on your own. He stood right in the fire and laughed. Not because it's funny, but because it's true. And when you've lived long enough in this business, you realize that truth is more dangerous than lies. That's why Katt keeps receipts. That's why he doesn't flinch. Because he knows Hollywood runs on silence, and he's the only one yelling in the middle of the room while everyone else pretends not to hear. And that's why Warner's sudden disappearance feels so scripted, too neat, too silent. This wasn't some washed-up actor fading into obscurity. He was still sharp, still working, still pulling in audiences with that rare, effortless charm. But most importantly, he was finally saying something. Something real, something dangerous. So now the question hangs like smoke in the air. Did he step on the wrong toes? Or did he start tugging on a thread someone didn't want unraveled? Because if you've been paying attention, there's a pattern here. First they brand you unstable. Then they isolate you. Then one day, you just stop showing up. No farewell tour. No big send-off, just gone. Dave Chappelle talked about it. Monique lived it. Orlando Brown tried to warn us through the static. And Katt has been shouting into the void while Hollywood throws parties to drown him out. But now the music's off. The walls are closing in. And Katt is still here, still standing, still talking. They told us Warner's podcast would drop. They told us an episode was coming. Then nothing. No update. No apology. No explanation. Just a digital void where truth was supposed to land. And that, more than anything, feels like the story. The silence. The sudden stop. The unanswered questions that keep stacking up like red flags nobody wants to touch. Because when someone like Katt Williams tells you to watch the ones who stop smiling, and then one of those smiles fades for good, you'd better believe it's time to start asking why. Burned. That's what Kanye said. That's what Katt's been hinting at. That's what Orlando outright screamed. And now, in hushed online threads and side-eyed podcast rants, Malcolm-Jamal Warner is being whispered in the same breath. Because when you step outside the machine, it doesn't just ignore you, it erases you. Quietly, efficiently, as if you were never there, and if you're lucky, they let you disappear. If you're not, they turn your absence into a warning. So when Katt walked through the fire holding a lighter, it wasn't just a flex, it was a message. A dare, because he's the last one standing who isn't afraid to name names. To connect dots. To say what everyone else is too scared to put in writing, and Warner's passing feels like another dot. Another casualty of a system that feeds on innocence and spits out trauma. A system that praises you for playing along and punishes you for waking up. The Theo curse isn't just about Malcolm. It's about what Theo represented. A whole generation's mirror. The first time black boys saw themselves not as criminals, not as sidekicks, but as human, smart, flawed, funny. That was revolutionary. And revolutions, even subtle ones, don't go unpunished in this industry. Because there's power in representation. There's fear in letting that power grow unchecked. What's wild is, no matter how many times this happens, people still act surprised. As if every single story isn't following the exact same script. They build them up, milk their talent, own their image, then dump them when the narrative stops serving the machine. If they fight back, suddenly they're unhinged, difficult, troubled. If they disappear quietly, the industry offers thoughts and prayers, then moves on. It's not personal, it's protocol, so don't get it twisted. Malcolm didn't just vanish. He mattered, and his absence echoes louder than most people's presence ever will. Because his story, just like Gary's, Amanda's, Orlando's, even Katt's, isn't a mystery. It's a blueprint. The only real mystery left is, who's next? And who's finally going to break the cycle before it breaks someone else? They get punched in the face, metaphorically, all the time. The press dogs them, Hollywood ignores them, and the public moves on. But invoking the Theo curse isn't about spooky coincidences. It's about cycles of exploitation, abandonment, and quiet erasure. When you can list generation after generation of names, that's not chance. That's a blueprint. Malcolm-Jamal Warner's death isn't just tragic, it's telling. At what point do we stop playing dumb? How many names have to vanish, break down, or fade into obscurity before we stop calling this bad luck and start calling it what it is: retaliation? This system doesn't like growth. It rewards silence, not evolution. Warner wasn't reckless, he wasn't messy, he didn't live in the tabloids. But what he did have was a clean reputation and a growing platform outside their control. That's what made him dangerous. He didn't need Hollywood's green light anymore. His podcast was rising. His message was raw, unfiltered, and it mattered. In a world of independent media, viral clips, and receipts that don't fade, that's a problem for the gatekeepers. Because Malcolm didn't sell drama, he sold truth. And when black entertainers start speaking outside the script, the machine gets quiet and deadly. Ask Katt, ask Amanda, ask Orlando. You see the pattern. Now the same machine that ghosted Warner is suddenly in mourning. Hollywood, the networks, the executives, they ignored him for years. And now, they're posting filtered tributes and spliced montages like they always cared. Beyoncé threw up a black and white photo on her site, but where was that support? When he was struggling to get roles or find sponsors for his podcast, they didn't support Malcolm. They tolerated him, until it was time to use him. Let's keep it real. If Hollywood ever truly embraced Warner, he wouldn't have needed to bootstrap a podcast to speak his mind. But he did, and it was working. He launched Nothood, talked mental health, black masculinity, and the myth of inclusion. It was getting traction, and just weeks later, he was gone. Sources say one of his last recorded episodes included anonymous black actors exposing retaliation for refusing to sign those image-cleaning contracts. So now we ask, why hasn't it surfaced? The files were supposedly backed up cloud servers. External drives, but, according to Warner's own co-hosts, access is restricted. Pending legal review, they claim. But who ordered that review? Who's holding the footage? And why hasn't even one clip dropped on a tribute? Not a teaser, not even a still frame, just silence. That same heavy, eerie silence we've heard before. Which brings us right back to the mystery at the center of this unraveling. The rescuer, a nameless 29-year-old Nicaraguan man who reportedly risked his life, landed in critical condition, and then vanished. Discharged quietly. No statement, no interview, not even a first name. Costa Rican officials claim he had zero connection to Warner. But really, who was he? A good Samaritan? A planted intercept? or a ghost who was never supposed to exist. Let's not forget, Warner wasn't some has-been. He had over 84 acting credits, spanning decades of television. He was Hollywood until he chose to speak without their permission. TMZ even published what might be the last photo of him, captured July 13th, arriving at the Costa Rican airport. A week later, he was dead. It's heartbreaking to look at that image and realize what was about to unfold. Multiple sources tied to the Not Who'd podcast say Warner knew he was being followed. He mentioned hotel surveillance, shadows that didn't belong. Was that paranoia or the instincts of a man who realized too late that the walls were closing in? Because this isn't just about Warner, this is part of a pattern. A chilling, well-rehearsed sequence of silencing black voices who stopped playing the game. Katt Williams, Diddy's implosion, the sudden deaths, the quiet removals, the media blackouts. The timing is never random. It's never clean, and it always comes with a whisper before the storm. So now we ask the question they don't want you asking. Was Malcolm-Jamal Warner's final chapter written by the ocean? Or by someone far more calculating? Was this a drowning or a message? Another warning in a decades-old playbook? And if so, who's next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this video and let us know, was this really just the end? Or was it the start of something far darker unraveling behind the scenes?